How to cope with betrayal when you stay together and want to move forward. I've been happily married for almost 14 years. My husband hasn't textbook cheated, but he's strayed from our relationship on multiple occasions by sexting, taking pictures of women in public spaces, and having streaming apps on his phone. Each time he has been genuinely sorry and I've forgiven him and we've moved forward. We truly have a happy marriage outside of this. Our values align, we love spending time together, we support and encourage each other and have great chemistry. In 2019 he strayed again in this way and I told him that we were going to last chance couples therapy. We did therapy for a while, and then during the pandemic working from home gave us a unique opportunity to talk more and we started having these really sweet coffee chats in the morning and talked through a lot of pain and healing. I was so proud of him and us. Then in 2021 he had an inappropriate texting relationship with a coworker, and in 2022 I found more pictures of women in public spaces, including one of a close family friend, basically a cousin, who is in her early 20s. This was devastating and we started couples therapy again, as a final chance attempt at saving things, again. He found a new therapist who specializes in this type of behavior and he has been so incredibly helpful. His new therapist also sees us together in couples therapy. I think he is finally uncovering the deeper layers that are driving this behavior and I'm feeling good about the progress we are making individually and together in therapy. I feel like he is really growing, which helps to rebuild trust. Here is where I need help. All of this time, I have managed to maintain a positive body image, despite his behavior and despite putting on weight from having kids. That is until the last few months. Something has shifted in me since going deeper in processing all of this in therapy, and now I feel depressed and undesirable. I've convinced myself that he's only attracted to skinny 20-somethings and I get triggered any time we are in a public space and there is a 20-something there, especially if they are showing skin, as 20-somethings often do. I'm trying to work on helping myself in these moments, but nothing feels like it works. My therapist told me to try a mantra like, I'm enough or I'm desirable. I honestly like the idea of a mantra, but I don't like those. The truth is I just don't believe them right now, so they just make me more upset. What can I do to help myself when I feel triggered? Do anyone have advice for rebuilding a positive body image? And does anyone who's been betrayed and stayed in the relationship have advice on how to move forward, forgive, and trust again?
My boss fired me, but ended up getting fired herself instead. This happened about 15 years ago at my first job. I was 16 years old, in high school and working over 60 hours per week at a restaurant. I started out as part-time, but was the only person willing to close the restaurant, so I worked 7 nights a week, 9-ish hours per night while still in high school. The way the management team was made up was 1 general manager and 3 assistant managers. All of the management, and even other staff, like me and I never had any issues at all. There was 1 assistant manager who had it out for me for some reason. We will call her Carol. One Saturday night, there was a rodeo going on in town, so I knew that we would get a rush around 10 as we were the only place open that late in town. I told management the day before, as it takes many hours for the roast beef to cook and they usually cook them overnight. Carol was supposed to cook extra roast beef, but failed to do so. Saturday night comes and we get a huge rush around 10:30, 30 minutes before closing. There were 3 of us there, the cook, the manager and me. They are both making the food while I'm running the drive-thru, front counter, and bagging the food myself. We ended up running out of roast beef. Instead of no longer taking orders, Carol decides she's going to cook the roast beef in the microwave, and she says this loud enough for customers to hear. Now I've got people asking for refunds, and the manager is the only one that can issue refunds. After about the 5th time of me asking her to give someone a refund, she yells at me in front of about 50 customers and tells me that if I can't do my job without her help then I could just leave and not come back. Here's where the petty comes in. The cook and I had a very good friendship. She was a 50-something-year-old woman, and I was a 16-year-old boy, but we got along great. I ended up talking her into quitting, but we still took care of the customers before leaving the manager there by herself to close the store. I called the general manager to let her know what happened and she asked me and the cook to stay and wait for her to get there. When the general manager gets there and is asking us about what happened, I looked at her and said, "Why don't you call your son and ask him? He was in the lobby the whole time." Carol's face went white. The general manager talks to her son, comes back and sends Carol home and asked me and the cook to stay and close. The next day, I learned that Carol had been fired and had requested that someone bring her personal items to her as she didn't want to come to the store. The cook and I graciously volunteered to take her things to her. She wouldn't even answer her door. We just left her things on her porch and went about our business. I have seen Carol several times since this, and she still won't speak to me.